So we're learning the Shabbat Beis Hamikdash immediately. We're for Shlema for Yichel Nasim Ben Sarah, Aaron David Alevi Ben Menucha Lester, Avram Fel Ben Sarah. You see where we're holding? Chavav Hamadez, 2 lines from the bottom. Amar or Amar of Papi. Am I correct? Is that where we left off? Amar of Papi Mishmeid. Looks like Rebbe, but it's probably Rava. Mishmeid the Rava, the Rebbe. Mibei Knista lebei Rabbanan Shari says that you're allowed to turn a synagogue into a beis medrash, into a study hall. In other words, that's considered going up. A study hall is greater than a synagogue. Mibei Rabbanan lebei Knista, but to turn a study hall into a synagogue, that's asur. That's forbidden. Interesting. Rav Papa Mishmei de Rav Masniepcha. Rav Papa in the name of Rav taught it exactly the opposite. She could see this going both ways, right? So he says that you're allowed to turn a beis medrash into a shul, study hall into a synagogue. Amar Ravacha Kavaseder of Papi Mistabra. It makes more sense to follow Rav Papi. He said that the study hall is greater than the synagogue. Dam Rabbi Shua ben Levi, basic nesses, matalasese basic medrash mamina. We have a proof from an earlier source. The earlier source is Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Shua ben Levi is a first generation Amora in Eretz Yisrael. And he says that a shul, a synagogue, is allowed to you're allowed to turn it into a study hall. So that's a proof for Rav Papi in the name of Rava. Darash bar kapara maidiksiv yisref es beis Hashem es beis Melach es kol bati Yerushalayim es kol beis bayis gadol saraf beish. It's referring to Nivuz Radan. Nivuz Radan, and I think he was like a general of Nebuchadnezzar. So he destroys the Beis Hamikdash, first Beis Hamikdash, and he destroys the house of Hashem. He burns the house of Hashem, the house of the king, all the houses of Yerushalayim, all the big house he burns in fire. So the Gemara explains what this pasuk means because it says a lot of things got burned. So Beis Hashem is a Beis Hamikdash. The house of Hashem, that's referring to the Beis Hamikdash, was burned. Beis HaMelech, the house of the king, Ela Palchin Shal Melech, those are the palaces of the king. Veskol Bat Yerushalayim, K'mashman, the houses of Yerushalayim. Okay, that we know what that means. Veskol Bayis Gadol Saraf Beish, all the big houses he burnt in fire. All the big house he burnt in fire. Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Shua ben Levi. There's a machlekes between Rabbi Yechon and Rabbi Shua ben Levi. What's the meaning of Bayis Gadol? Chadam or Makam Shemagadlim by Torah. One of them says the Bayis Gadol is a place where they raise Torah. It's referring to a study hall. But Chadam or Makam Shemagadlim by Tefillah. Other one said it's a place where they raise prayer. So maybe a synagogue. So my man the Amar Torah, the one that says that it's referring to a study hall that says Hashem Chafetz L'man Tzidkei, Hashem desires for his righteousness, Yagdol Torah v'yader, to raise Torah and to strengthen it. We see it comes to Torah, we use the word to raise it, Yagdol Torah, to make it great. My Mandamer Tefillah, the one that says that it's referring to a synagogue that what got burnt. Tiksiv Safrana Hagdoles Asher Asa Elisha. He'll say over the greatness that Elisha did, and Elisha David Brachmi David. Everything Elisha did was with prayer. So when it says the word to raise or greatness, it's referring to prayer. Okay, so we have two sources, two possibilities of what this means. Sometimes when it gives us a machlekes, it doesn't tell us who says what. It just says chadamar. One says this, one says that. Now the Gemara tries to prove when it says chadamar, who's it actually referring to? Because we know it's Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Rabbi Yochanan. So it says we'll prove that it's Rabbi Shua ben Levi. that says that it's referring to a study hall. It must be that he's the one that said that it's referring to a study hall, because he says that a Beis HaKnesses, a synagogue, is allowed to be turned into a study hall, which means the study hall is greater, which means the word gadol would be used for the study hall. Tosfos over here says that when there's a machlekes, it appears that if there's a machlekes Rabbi Shua ben Levi and Rabbi Yechanan, we would follow Rabbi Shua ben Levi.
Are both a study hall and a shul like mutually exclusive? I'm sure you could have like
could be both. Yeah. But if it would be mutually exclusive, which one would be greater?
Oh.
Sometimes the way they set it up, you can't really study. The way they.
I guess the connection to the subject is, were to rebuild what had been burned down, this would limit what they could use it for.
No, I think what's happening here is you're always supposed to go up. If you have this, you sell it for this.
No, the connection to
Oh.
the basic subject of sanctity.
Interesting. I don't know if that's what's happening. I think it's just translating the pasuk, and then when we translate the pasuk, then we're going to know which one is greater based on we had an argument Rav Papa and Rav Papi. Yeah. Okay. What's Tosfos' proof that it would go like Rabbi Shua ben Levi? It says like this, that I'll prove it to you that Rav Papi is right. Why? Because Rabbi Shua ben Levi says like that. Rabbi Yechanan says different. So it must be the Allah like Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Right?
Is that right? Is it the way it's supposed to work?
Well, if there's if there's an argument,
Right.
and then we'll say, and then there's another argument exactly the same. I'll say, I'll prove it to you that one of these is correct because one of those says like him. Obviously, one of the earlier ones gets the halacha. Okay. If they sold the Sefer Torah, they're not allowed to buy the other books of the prophets and the writings. It doesn't say what they can buy because there's nothing higher than that. Can they sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a new one? Interesting question. Yeah, I know shuls would do this. They would sell they would have two old Sefer Torah and they would get one good one nice one, So that's the Gemara's question. I mean, the Mishnah didn't tell me if you're allowed to sell a Sefer Torah to buy another Sefer Torah, but it seems that you are because it said you're not allowed to buy Svarim. That would sound like you're allowed to buy a Sefer Torah. You're not allowed to go down in level, but the same level sounds like the same. Let's see. Because you're not going up, it's aser. It should be forbidden. Maybe because there's nothing higher than that, so that should be fine. So Tashema, come and listen. That means we're going to bring a proof. But if they sold the Sefer Torah and then I'm allowed to buy Svarim who delay. You're not allowed to buy Svarim. Svarim means not a Sefer Torah, means the other books of the Tanakh. Ha Torah, bit Torah, Shapidami. But to exchange one Torah, to sell it, to be able to buy another Sefer Torah, Shapidami, that sounds like it's good. Sounds like that's a good proof. Gemara says, no, Masdisin Di'evet. Mishnah is talking about where it was sold already. The question is, what do you do with the funds? It says you can't buy Svarim. But Lechatchila, are you allowed to go and sell it just to be able to buy a Sefer Torah? That's a question. We didn't say you're allowed to sell it to buy a Sefer Torah. We just said if it's sold, you can't buy Svarim. Probably you can buy a Sefer Torah, but you sold it already. But are you Lechatchila allowed to sell it? Tashema. So another proof. Come and listen. You can use the cloth the mitpachas is the mantle of a chumash, which is a chumash means that it's not a complete Sefer Torah. It's just like one scroll of Bereshis. It wasn't used in the synagogue, it was used for studying, but it was still wrapped up. So you're allowed to then take that and use it for a Sefer Torah. So you're moving it up in level. It's not going down, it's moving up in level. In a chumash, a single scroll of one of the 5 books could be used, a mantle from the prophets could be used for that. Uksuvim, mitpachas neviim uksuvim. Avalei neviim uksuvim b'mitpachas chamashim, but you can't go the other way. You can't wrap up the prophets and the writings and scrolls of chamashim, v'lei chamashim mitpachas Sefer Torah, and you can't put a Sefer Torah mantle on a chumash.
What do you mean by mantle? Like,
The thing that goes over the cloth.
well, how do you put one on a safer? Like, how do you put one of those on a safer?
Well, it's not really a book. Everything was scrolls back then.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
So it's all scrolls. Just the question is which scroll. Okay. What did we learn here? You're allowed to wrap a Sefer Torah with a mantle of a chumash, but you can't use a cloth from another Sefer Torah for this Sefer Torah. Sounds like
Is that
I
what you
can't.
did the guard tool too, or
Yeah, probably.
sash?
Probably. That means that you're only allowed to change to something higher, but not to something that's equal. That would sound like I can't sell a Sefer Torah to buy another Sefer Torah because that would be equal. I'm only allowed to move up.
Well, it said if it was a nicer Sefer Torah, it might be mutar.
Maybe, but so far we don't have a proof of that.
Oh.
So, a Maseifa, let's go further. It says, it says you can't wrap a chumash with a mantle of a Sefer Torah. That would sound like, why? Because I'm degrading the mantle of the Sefer Torah down to the level of a chumash. Ha Torah b'Torah, shaperdami. It's an abbreviation there. But to use a mantle from a Torah for another Torah, that would be acceptable. Where it says, we'll never get anywhere with this. We'll go one way, the other way. We have proofs for both sides. So we can't get a proof. Still looking for an answer. Tashema. Question was, are you allowed to sell a Sefer Torah to buy another Sefer Torah? Minichan Sefer Torah al gabi Torah, v'Torah al gabi chamashim, v'chamashim al gabi neviim, ksuvim, avalei neviim, ksuvim al gabi chamashim, v'chamashim al gabi Torah. You're allowed to pile up or rest a Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah. You're allowed to put a Torah on top of a chumash. Chumash means it's one of the scrolls of the 5 books. You're allowed to put a chumash al gabi neviim, ksuvim. But you can't put the prophets on top of a chumash, and you can't put a chumash like chumash, you can't put a chumash on a Torah. Aha!
The difference between a chumash and a sefer Torah is
If
a
it's
chumash just
all
has
5, and a chumash just has one of the 5.
Oh. Well, I mean, I had the impression that a chumash could also have all 5 books. Also.
That would be a modern day chumash.
Oh, okay.
But in the Gemara,
So that's why it's called
a chumash means
1/5.
1/5. Yeah,
Oh,
it's 1/5 versus all 5.
cool.
So it seems like you're allowed to put a Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah, which sounds like you should be allowed to exchange a Sefer Torah for another Sefer Torah. If you're allowed to put it on top, looks like you can do that. The Gemara says Hanacha Kamrit. You bring a proof from how you're allowed to place it. Shani halacha hanacha d'lo yefsher. When it comes to the way you place it, it's impossible to do it to get around this because it has to be placed on top of another Torah. Why? It has to be able to be placed. If you say, oh, you're never allowed to place a Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah. So then, how are you allowed to wrap it up? Yeah. Use this. Every page is on top of another page, right? When it's wrapped, it would be the same thing. So you have to say that you're allowed to place one Torah on top of another Torah because Every page is a page of a Torah. You won't be able to wrap it. You have to always leave it open. How's that? It's going to be crazy. So, Ella, kiven le'efshar shari, hachanami kiven le'efshar shari. Just like when it comes to wrapping it, you have one part of the Torah on top of another part of the Torah. So too, when it comes to placing them, you're allowed to put one Torah on. You're allowed to put a Sefer Torah on top of another Sefer Torah. That doesn't mean that you're allowed to sell it in order to buy another Sefer Torah.
Do you know where the Spartan got this cylindrical mantle? Like where did they get that minhag from?
I mean, the one.
Yeah, it's like a cylinder that pretty much opens up.
Yeah. It has to do with if the Sefer Torah is supposed to stay standing when you read it, or if you put it on a slant. We hold that you put it on a slant because just like the mezuzah goes on a slant, Sefer Torah goes on a
Yeah,
slant.
well, the
And-
shulchan, the tables kind of stacked.
Right.
Sometimes.
And the
not all the time.
Svardim put the mezuzahs straight up,
Right. Yeah.
right? You don't stand
Yeah.
them. So the Sefer Torah is
I
the
didn't
same.
think both were related though.
No, it is. It's related. We had a Taisus and Menachos or something.
Oh, wow.
And the Sefer Torah is the same thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a machloket.
I think so. I seem to remember that was a Taisus and Menachos or something that Rabbeinu Tam. Okay. So, yeah. Tashma. So come and listen. Dama Rabba Bar B'Chanan Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Rabba Bar B'Chanan, in the name of Rabbi Yechanan, in the name of Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, La Yimkar Adam Sefer Torah Yashan Likach Bechadash. Seems very clear.
Yeah.
Not allowed to sell an old Sefer Torah to buy a new one. There's our answer. Okay. The Gemara says that's different because Hasam Mishum Pshiusa. Over there, you're going to sell it. Maybe you're not going to end up buying the new one. Money's just going to sit there. Something else is going to come up. You're going to end up without any Sefer Torah. Kikam Rinan, our question was that it was in the house of the Sefer and it's waiting to be purchased. All you have to do is pay for it. Over here, we're talking about, you're going to sell a Sefer Torah, then you're going to
Trade it. Trade it.
a trade-in, right? A trade-in.
Get a new car out. No negligence involved. Right?
Right. Problem was, but over there, what was Reb Shimon ben Gamliel's din, Rabbi Yechanan and Rabbi Bar B'Chanan, was when you were going to hire a sefer to then write it, and then you don't know what's going to happen. Will it end up getting finished or not? Okay. Tashma, Damar Rabbi Yechanan Mishum Reb Meir, Ein Meichen Sefer Torah Ela Lilmad Torah V'Lisa Isha. Shma Mina Torah B'Torah Shapidami. We have a statement from Rabbi Yechanan in the name of Reb Meir. The only time you're allowed to sell a Sefer Torah is to study Torah. You need to go to yeshiva. You have to pay tuition. So you can sell your family Sefer Torah to be able to pay tuition. Or to get married, Lisa Isha, to pay for the wedding. So those are reasons to sell a Sefer Torah. What would this tell us? If I'm allowed to sell a Sefer Torah to study Torah, sounds like I'm allowed to sell a Torah for Torah. The Gemara says, Dil Mashani Limud. Maybe not. Maybe learning Torah is different than the item. Shahalimud Mevil De Maisa. Because studying Torah will bring you to perform. Yeah, I don't know why the Gemara has to add that in. What about Limud itself? Saying the advantage of Limud is that it will bring you to perform. I guess it's not enough, the learning itself. You need to have the Maisa also. And I know, we know that. I know that Limud is Mevil De Maisa. But for this Gemara, I could have answered it just, I didn't have to add in that phrase. Okay. So the Gemara says, Yishanami, Laitayubra, Laisayubra, Lashavas Yitzara. You weren't created for nothing. You're created to establish a world. So it's important to get married. So that would be a reason why you're allowed to sell a Sefer Torah. Aval Torah b'Torah loy, but to sell a Sefer Torah, to buy another Sefer Torah, maybe not. What's going on?
All we've been working is all the reasons you can't sell a Sefer
Right.
Torah. Is someone allowed to buy a Sefer Torah that's for sale when the person who's selling it might be over what it is? Are you then over by offering, by buying?
Oh.
Because this happens all the time. You have all these shuls and people selling Torahs. So are you allowed to buy these Torahs?
We'll see shortly. We'll see shortly. There may be a way out. Maybe a way out. You'll see. Taner Rabbanan. The Gemara doesn't answer the question. The Gemara, it's like the Rebbeinu Chanal says, "V'lo yifshita, v'lo yifshit behedya." The Gemara doesn't answer. So therefore, you can't sell a Sefer Torah. Doesn't give you an answer. You have to be strict. Yeah. Taner Rabbanan was taught in a Brayso Yom Kadam Sefer Torah Afi Shein Tzarich Lei. Person cannot sell a Sefer Torah even though he doesn't need it. Yisrael came Amar Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel said even more. Afilu ein lema yoichal. U'macher Sefer Torah oibita ein reisim bracha l'olam. An interesting comparison. Someone doesn't have what to eat, and he sells the Sefer Torah or his daughter, so he won't see blessing from that. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. What happens if they sell the Torah, they sell the whatever it is, and it was let's say a chumash in order to buy a Sefer Torah or something like that, and then there's money left over. So can they say that money goes to some other project? The answer is no. Amar Rava leishanu ala shemachru v'hisiru. When is there this restriction that you can't use the money for some other project? That's if they sold it, and the purchase money, the sale money, the money that comes in, was extra. Whatever they bought, they sold it. They had the money there. They went and they bought whatever they were allowed to buy, and now they have extra money. So that money has the sanctity of the original item. Aval gavu v'hisiru, but let's say they raised funds and they had money left over. This money maybe was never sanctified. This could be a different story. This money was never a Sefer Torah. So that's, he says, is mutter. Very interesting. It's the difference between raising the money and then selling it and having extra money.
Even though they raised it with the intent that this would
Right.
only be used for that
Right.
purpose.
That's what it looks like.
Shackled. As soon as it was
Yeah.
thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Didn't we learn last week that if you have left over, you just hold it till the next?
Right. That's what we're saying here. But the problem is that Rava comes along and says that's money that's from a sale. You have to hold it until you collect, and then you'll be able to buy another one. But you can't degrade it. However, if it was money that was collected, then that's a little different. That's what Rava is telling us. Eisvei Abaya. Yeah. Why don't they return the money? They never do. No one ever returned the money. Dear Mr. So-and-so, thank you for your donation. It wasn't necessary. You can have it back. We reached the goal already. And they had the extra, right? Stop ringing.
Person distributed.
Esvei Abaya. Abaya has a question. That's only if they didn't make a condition. Aval hisnu. I feel the mutter. We're going to see what the chsusia is in a moment. This is like a little bit vague until we figure out what's happening here. Abaya says that there's a statement that says that if there was, when do we say that there's an issue with the remaining money? That's only if there was no condition. But if there was a condition, then they made a condition that this funds is only going to be bound to what we decided. So only the amount that we need. But if there's extra or something, we can use it for other things. If they made that condition, then it's fine. So heichidami, what's the case where that condition actually works? If it was a sale, and they said by the sale that if extra funds come in, then it should not be, if it's more than what we need for the new Sefer Torah, so then it shouldn't be sanctified. How can you make a condition like that? You can't make a condition. The funds are the exchange for the Sefer Torah. It's already sanctified. It must be that it was raising the funds, and they were raising the funds for the initially, and they made a condition. But time of the hisna, but then it would need to be only because of the condition. But if there was no condition, then it would automatically be grasped by the sanctity, and it would be you wouldn't be able to use it for anything else. It's a question on Rava. Rava said that even without a condition, if it was a regular collection, it wouldn't be sanctified. Gemara says, actually, we're talking about that it was a sale and there was extra funds and a condition helps. It's going to change what's going on over here. This is what it's saying. Remember we said that if the city elders, together with the whole city, make agree to do this, then that's fine. If it was an agreement by the city elders, then they're allowed to do this. I'm not sure how this works. Why should the city? The Gemara said before clearly that you're allowed to even make even buy beer if the city elders decided that. Yeah, or a tavern. We didn't know what the pshat was over there. Okay, so what we're saying now is that the condition that we're talking about that would change everything is talking about a condition of the city elders. They could change the whole what's going on. So probably, Dr. Stein, when the sale of a Sefer Torah, you say, how are they selling it? How are we able to buy it? It must have been that the board or whatever. I don't know if that makes a difference. Everyone agreed. I don't know how they would say, I don't know how it would sell any other way. How would the talking about it?
Yeah, whenever we sell and buy, we're always telling them l'chatchila that they have to make that clear condition and understanding. It's always upfront.
So tell me more. It has to be that understanding that the whole board is an agreement.
Yeah, it's 100%, and it's very clear that geld that they're getting from cannot be used for anything else, and they have to approve that.
Wow.
So if
Okay.
one person in the board disagrees.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that it has to be an accepted because it's owned by everyone. So this is
Well.
I wonder if you could buy a Sefer Torah with stolen money. Gambling.
What's wrong?
There's crazier stories.
Okay. What happened?
There was a famous women's female seminary called Gold's.
Okay.
It decided to shut its doors while I lived there. They make 2 Sefer Torah. I was interested in buying one. I heard they were for sale. I sent my daughter to Ukraine.
Uh-huh.
You Silverstrom in
Yeah.
Jerusalem, so he's considered an expert.
Right.
So I called him and asked him if he would come and look at the Sifrei Torah for me.
Uh-huh.
This whole story isn't okay to the law because the word looking was just an interesting event. So he came out and he looked. And he looked through both Sifrei Torah. He said, "This one is no good, forget it."
It's custom law.
Uh-huh.
And he looked through the second one and he said, "This Sefer was read by Tzaddik."
Uh-huh.
I never asked him how he did that because I didn't want to see what it was.
Yeah,
That was what he
yeah, you
said.
don't want to ask them. It's like,
Uh-huh.
So you buy it,
And so then I said, I only want to buy the one that's good. If I buy the second one that's not good, now I have a problem, not an asset.
Right.
And
They only were selling both.
they couldn't decide if they were ready to separate them or not, and I was leaving, and I didn't want to buy two and have them sitting on my dining room table while I
Right.
was away in America for a month.
Uh-huh.
That would be right, so I ended up passing it. The whole
Uh-huh.
story was very interesting.
you could have bought two and picked the good one.
Amalei Abaya.
Didn't ask him.
We didn't explain yet what the chsusya is. Amalei Abaya l'humer Rabbanan dav Masada Masnis Kamid Rav Sheshes. Abaya tells to one of the students. This student used to arrange the brises in front of Rav Sheshes. Sheshes himself was an expert in brises. Knew it's right. Says he knew all the brises. He knew. Mishmielach me Rav Sheshes my dechsusya. Have you ever heard from Rav Sheshes what's the meaning of dechsusya? Amalei hachem Rav Sheshes. He says, yeah. Rav Sheshes said the following: Parsha Damasa. It's a horse that's used for the city, or a rider. That's like a messenger that would be used in case they needed something from the ruler or something. They should always have a horse ready.
It's the horse or the rider.
I'm not sure.
It's the town, Jupiter.
Maybe it's a rider and a horse.
Town horseman.
On horseman.
Who would serve the townspeople, sentry, and for public dispatches.
Uh-huh. Amar Abaya, so Abaya says it's an Uber. Hilka Chaitzov Rabbanan. This young scholar, the Shmilei Milsav Liya the Perusha, that he hears something, he doesn't know the pshat. You should ask someone that hangs out by the rabbis, someone that hangs out in the yeshiva or whatever. It's impossible that he didn't hear a pshat from one of the great people. So, Abaya asked the student if he knows. He ends up telling him, "Yeah, I heard exactly from Rav Sheshes directly." Said, "So you see, this is a good idea. Ask what the meaning is from people that were in the yeshiva." Rabbi Yechanan mishum Reb Meir. Rabbi Yechanan says in the name of Reb Meir, Bnei Yair shehalchu lir acheres. If a whole town ends up going to another town, what's happening? I don't know. A wedding, maybe there's a fair. I don't know. Tzedakah. When they're in that town, they require everyone to make a pledge. Now you have this town is now going to be making a pledge of tzedakah to this town that they're visiting. So, Neiston, they have to give. But when they're returning to their own town, they go over to the Gabbai and they say, "Look, we're going back. We gave a pledge, but they bring the money back with them. And they use it for their own town. Because while they were there, they had to be part of the community and everyone needed to give. But it doesn't mean that those funds don't end up going to their own community. It's not like you're a private individual. You're visiting a town and you got an aliyah, you give to this is the entire town was there. Tanya Namiyachi was also taught in the Brisa Bnei Yair Shalchul Acheres, plus Kaliyam Tzedakah, and they had to give a pledge. It's a nice thing. When they return to their town, they take it with them. But if it's an individual that goes to another town, a Pascal of Tzedakah, he has to give Tzedakah. Then that's it. He has to give it to the poor of that city. Okay. Rav Huna Gazer Tanisa. Rav Huna, he imposed a fast on the community. What was the fast for? I don't know, maybe rain. I don't know. Al legabe Rav Chana bar Chanilai b'chol b'nei Masya. So Rav Chana bar Chanilai and all his town end up coming to Rav Huna. Rama Aleim Tzedakah. So at that gathering where there was a fast, and they said everyone has to give tzedakah. So so they gave the tzedakah. This is probably a town that's right near Rav Huna's town. Where did Rav Huna live? Live in Surah. This is a town right near Surah, probably. Right? Rav Huna was a student of Rav, so he took over the yeshiva. When they wanted to go, give us the money back. We're going back to our town. We'll use it for the poor of our town. Amalei Tanina says, no, I have a brisa or a mishnah. When you're allowed to take it back, that's only if there's no Talmud Chacham there that deals with the poor. But if there's a Talmud Chacham, then you don't take the money back. It turns out that you shouldn't take it back anyway, because the poor from your town end up coming to me to get the money. So what are you taking it back for? I anyways give them. Okay.
Is he the one who said people come because of me, so I can decide to sell?
Yeah, that was Ravashi, I think. That was Ravashi and Masamachsha. That's a good point. Ravashi said that the people come because of me, so I can sell the shul, even though it was a city shul. We said a village shul was one thing, but a city shul not, because it's owned by the community. He said, but this one is actually owned by me. Well, it's because of me. Okay, we have a new Mishnah. In Meicher es shel rabim liyachid merid nice mikdushase.
And the last one, it says a town scholar. If there's a scholar in there, that means they don't really want to trust anybody else. Only
Right.
scholars can be trusted because other people have
Right.
other morality. Treasury. So.
Right. This was for a fund. I think it works like that today. Yeah. Also, a lot of the funds there's a rabbi that's in charge of it. The Gemach, the different tzedakah funds. Yeah. You can't sell a public sefer Torah to an individual because that's lowering its holiness, its sanctity. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Yeah, on the side it says Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Let's leave it as it's written. Divrei Rabbi Meir. Amrlai, they said to him, then you can't sell it from a big city to a small city either. That's also lowering its sanctity, because it was used by many, now it's going to be used by fewer. Right? Shaper Kamalei Rabbanan Rameir. The Rabbanan have a good point. Yeah, they have a good point. What's the difference if it's a community to an individual, through a large community to a small community? The Gemara answers, Rab Meir, Meir Gedei Le'Ktana, Mi'ikara Kadisha, Hashtanami Kadisha. From a big city to a small city, the fact is there's a minyan. So it's not a problem. It's going to be used for a minyan. You say Kaddish and Kedusha and whatever. Everything of holiness is going to be able to be done. Once you have a minyan, so then that's the line that changes everything. But from a public to a private, over there's no Kedusha. It's not a Davar Kedusha anymore.
When I lived in Connecticut, there was a shul. Someone donated Sefer Torah to a shul, and there was some disagreement, so he just took it back and put it in his house. Yeah.
Nowadays, a lot of times people donate Sefer Torah. They don't actually give over the title of it. They actually hold on to the title of the Sefer Torah, and they want the merit of it the whole time. It wasn't like actually given. It's like sort of on loan. Yeah. Yeah. To use. Right.
I'm saying I was told.
Right. That's what they say.
That's how it had to be.
There's some practical implications. In terms of what can be done with it. Another shul has to borrow it.
That makes sense.
I do. Because now if they come to you and ask permission, each time if they can lend it out.
It's funny because
It's
they
incomplete.
didn't, and it got damaged, and there's a whole cloth this big. That's safe for Torah, that's been totally replaced.
Oh.
Because the Simchas Torah damaged, but no one did, guess what told me it was damaged till 6 months later, because they thought it would be safe.
Who paid for the damage?
The shul.
The shul did.
Interesting.
I just read about a court case from Israel where that exact thing happened. The question was,
Oh, where do you read that? Where was that written?
what's the publication that comes up? Oh, Biyasha.
Oh, really? I'm not familiar with that.
It's a subset of ours now.
So it's a group that has about 8 in 4 cities.
Uh-huh.
Some that have evolved.
Oh. Interesting.
Yeah.
For Rabbanan, what do the Rabbanan hold? Ikla mechash ki agabna. Nami ikla mechash mishum brevam hadrus melech. If you're worried about kedusha, that you're going down from a city to an individual, that's not going to be a minion. So you have another concept of brevam hadrus melech. You have a large amount of people, a small amount of people. It's much greater when it's a large amount. We have that in the halachas of reading the Megillah. You're supposed to go to the big shul, right? Brevam hadrus melech. Okay, the Mishnah says, "Ein meichem basic nesesel al tanai, shem yirtzu yachziru divrav meir." Very interesting that when you sell the shul, when you sell the shul, you have to say that if we get the funds or whatever we needed, whatever reason why we sold it, we're going to take it back. It's sort of like being pawned. Otherwise, it looks like you're just getting rid of it, like disregard. For whatever reason, it needed to be sold, but you're supposed to have a stipulation there that if we get the funds that we need or for another source, we'll come back and buy it. That's the words of Reb Meir. No, you sell it. If you sell it, you sell it. However, you do have to say, but there are 4 things that you're not allowed to sell it for. You can't sell it for a merchatz, to be a bathhouse, a borsaki, say like a tanner, litvila, a mikvah, a lebeis hamayim is either a laundromat or a bathroom. Rabbi Yehuda has a solution. Says you sell it for a courtyard. And then afterwards he can do whatever he wants because it was already sold for a courtyard, which is something neutral. And then later they'll do whatever. The Gemara has a very interesting question. We're getting thrown into Bab Metzia over here. It says, Rab Meir, according to Rab Meir, when you sell the house, you sell the shul, you may end up purchasing it back. Meanwhile, listen to what happens. You sell the shul, you get money. That means when you give the money back, then the shul comes back to you. Okay, so that money is sort of like a loan. You get the money, that's a loan. The person that bought the shul, he lives in the shul. You give the money back. And together with giving the money back, you ended up also giving him a place to live for a few months or a few years, whatever. So the person is receiving interest. He lent you money for the sale. You buy it back, plus he lived there. It's interest.
That's considered interest.
Comes out. How's he allowed to live there? It's interest. He didn't pay rent. He got the exact money back.
Yeah, exactly.
So without rent. So it's interest. It's not 100% ribbis.
Yeah.
It's potentially ribbis because you don't know if the guy's going to buy it back. If he buys it back, then it's going to be ribbis. Is that considered real interest? So it's called tzad echad b'ribbis. There's a possibility there's a possibility that it's going to be interest. In other words, one person has control if this is going to be interest. The seller has control. The seller, if he then goes and buys it back, then it's going to create a problem of interest. The purchaser doesn't have any control over that, if it's interest or not.
Unless he deducts the money.
Unless he would deduct the money.
The value of,
Yeah. The way this is done, if this is ever done, the way it would be done is that in exchange for living in the house, you have to maintain the house. So that would be considered like paying for living there would be the upkeep and all the maintenance, which whatever that would cost. And then the money goes back. That's just the sale, but the maintenance was being done for. Yeah.
This is interesting. Choose the money. Because I guess this question, sale of a house going back to you. Has to, right?
Yeah. The only difference is that when the sale goes back by Yovel, every year it gets diminished.
Because of inflation or?
No, so not by Yovel. I'm saying if they buy it back, when it goes back by, the person doesn't get the money back by Yovel. Sell a field, it's really only selling it for if it's a land lease.
Right.
You don't get any money back. Oh, because of the property prices. Oh, inflation.
Look at this neighborhood.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. That's a very similar concept. It's called sa. When you sell an item, if the guy says I'm going to pay you back with that same item, so then you don't know if that's the same value. That's a complication in Hazav, Bab Mitzia. Right. So here we're saying that Reb Meir is following Rabbi Yehuda that holds that this is not a ribbis issue because it's called tzad echad b'ribbis. The Tanya was started in a brisa. If someone owes his friend $100, 100 zuz, but he sells him his field. If the seller continues to eat the produce of that field, then fine, mutter. But then it's usher. You see, he gives him his field. The creditor, he gives him the field, and he tells him that when I get the funds, I want it back, if I ever get the funds. So what's going to happen is if he gets the funds, he's going to take the field back. Who's eating the produce of the field the whole time? If the lender that now has the field is eating the produce, then he's going to end up getting money plus produce. That's going to be interesting. So, like Paris is going to be usher. If the purchaser, he's called the purchaser, which is the lender, it's going to be ribbis. Rabbi Yehuda, I feel like Paris mutter. Rabbi Yehuda says it's not a problem. It's not a problem. Tzad echad b'ribbis. Not necessarily is he ever going to come up with the funds. Meanwhile, it's going to be a regular sale. A regular sale. He's allowed to eat the produce of his own field. Rabbi Yehuda says, "Ma'aseh baitas ben zainan." Story with baitas ben zainan. He comes up sometimes. Sha'asa sadeo mecher al pi Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. Yeah, it's a name. What does zainan mean? It's a no. It's a type of wheat in the Mishnayos. It's a fake wheat of some sort, poisonous. Yeah. Maybe that's the association that could be in. Okay, so he ended up making his field into a sale. And the purchaser was eating the produce, which is a problem. but Rabbi Yehuda said it's not a problem. You see, I have a source that it's not a problem because who's going to say that it's going to come up with the funds and get the field back? They told him back. You bring a proof from that story with Baitas Ben Zainin. It was Baitas Ben Zainin that was eating the fruits. He was the one that was eating the produce. A lot of times it's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda argues with the sages, and he tells them, I have a story that happened years ago that's a support for me. And they say, don't bring that as a support. You didn't get the story right. Over there it was whatever. It happens often like that. Remember Hilni Amalka and Talmidi Shammai and Sukkah, you have a few things like that. Okay. My binayu, but what is the machlekes over here? Tzadechad b'ribasika binayu. The machlekes is if there's a uncertain ribis, that's the machlekes. Mar savar Rabbi Yehuda holds tzadechad b'ribas is mutter. Uncertain ribis is permissible. Mar savar, the Tanakama holds tzadechad b'ribas is aser. That if it's uncertain ribis, it's still prohibited. Rava Amid Kuli Alma tzadechad b'ribas is aser. Rava says everyone holds that it's aser. The machlekes here is v'hacha ribas almanas lahachser ikabinayu. There's another factor that's coming in that no one mentioned. There's a possibility that maybe when the sale goes back, the person's going to then return all the money. Return the interest. He's going to then pay for everything that he ate as the produce, or he's going to pay for the living there. So marsav ribas almanachs lahachser's mutter. Interest that's going to be returned is permissible. And the other one says marsav raser. Rabbi Yehuda would say that it's back to our Mishnah. We would say that when you take the shul back, the buyer has to then return all the rent money. Right, he paid for the shul. But he lives there. Then you buy the shul back. So when you buy the shul back, you give him back all his money. Plus he lived there. So at that point, he then has to pay the rent. So is that acceptable or not? So we're saying that this opinion holds that it's acceptable. Okay, say no, you sell it 100%, etc. I think when it comes to ribis, there's a problem of being meichel because the whole ribis is always meichel. The person always agreed to pay the ribis.
Right.
There's a problem with mechila by ribis.
Maybe that's the loophole for like the cash advance business. Not a lot to collect.
What about
Live there rent free.
Only going?
What if there's a Jew?
With Yidden. Who knows if
Sorry?
they're a boy?
what's that store that?
Oh, a heteriska.
Yeah,
Yeah, heteriska would work. Heteriska works that it's how does it work? It's half a sale, half a loan, and half a business, and that way all the interest always comes from your side of the comes from half of it. The loan part comes back in just exactly as it is, without any interest. And the other side of it comes back because you're become like a partner. So yeah. So Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel Mutal Adam Lahashta Mayim B'Teich Dali Amar Shel Tefillah. We take a little twist over here. Person is allowed to urinate within 4 cubits of a place of prayer. He davens in a certain place. He's allowed to come back and use that as a bathroom to urinate there. Amar Rav Yosef, my Kamashmalan, what are you telling me? Tanina, what's your chiddush? I have a Mishnah that says that. Rabbi Yehuda Amar Meicha Neisel Shem Chatzer V'Lekech Mashir Tziyasiyeh. Rabbi Yehuda said in the Mishnah, you sell the shul to be a courtyard. That's a neutral area, and then afterwards you can do whatever you want. So you could even urinate there as well. Even there are Rabbanan that said that this was problematic. That was because it was an actual shul. But just because someone one time davened mincha there, you're going to say that now this can never be used to urinate. No one ever said that. So it should be, there's no chiddush. Tanitana Kameder Rav Nachman. He doesn't answer. A student taught in front of Rav Nachman. Someone that's davening, he has to walk away 4 amas, and then he can urinate. But hamashtin, and someone that's going to the bathroom, that's urinating, he walks away 4 amas and then he davens. Amalei, so Rav Nachman tells him, I get what you're saying when someone was in the middle of urinating. Okay, then he wants to daven, so you should go away from that area. Makes sense. Don't daven right there. Walk away. Tanina, because we have a Mishnah that says, how much should a person distance himself from feces or from when he urinates? Dalet amas. So okay, so he has to walk away dalet amas 4 cubits. But after he davened already, why does he have to go away from that place? If you're going to say that anyone that davens somewhere is never allowed to be used as a bathroom, every street in Narda you can't go to the bathroom on, because someone probably davened mincha somewhere. I've never been to Narda.
So-and-so was davening in the woods, wherever it was, and now he has to go use it, relieve himself. Okay, the next thing to do is you walk away 4 feet. That's the way I understand it. That doesn't mean that just because someone davened here once, now you can.
That's what he's saying.
That's the way I understand it.
But we learned previously about the guy who, under his, will urinate.
And then continue.
So people did that.
Right.
How does it work?
They don't just pull up and
He's a
be at
professional
the
hiker.
first
They
building.
don't go to the facility.
They just pull up to the building and just do it on the wall.
You're making that up, but what's
Was that a
reality?
Baresa?
What do they do?
Probably. I saw a Baresa that a bike
Once
Like,
professional bikers, sometimes they pull over to the side of the road and they don't get off the bike. That would cost you seconds.
so
Sort of open up sometimes. Let's not go after.
This is too much information.
Seconds count.
See, we're taking your bike away.
It's a very interesting
in Peru,
Baresa.
the market ladies come and you see they're selling stuff and you see a trickle of water or something coming out from under their skirts. They're going to the bathroom.
Right.
Where's this?
This is in Cusco or in the Indian part
Yeah.
of Peru. It's a common thing.
Yeah.
So this is not an outrageous thing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, Machu Picchu. Right?
Okay. So the Gemara says here, Tani Yisha. It doesn't mean that you have to go away 4 amas from every place that someone davened in order to use the bathroom. It means that if someone davened, he should wait the time of 4 amas before he uses that before he goes to the bathroom. Bishlam, the Gemara says, 1 second, why? Bishlam amashtin yisha kedei hilach dalet amas mishum nitzaitzis. If someone was going to the bathroom, then I can understand that he should wait. I hear you. He should wait 4 amas before he starts davening, because there's nitzaitzis, there's drips of urine that shouldn't be on him when he's starting to daven. But why should someone wait after he davens before he goes to the bathroom for amas? What's going to happen? There's davening on him. Amar Ravashi, shekol dalet amas tfilas dur bepiv v'rechushi merachshin sifvasei. What happens is that the prayer is in his mouth, and his lips are still moving in prayer for 4 amas after he stops praying, still like holding in the middle of a conversation. So he has to wait 4 amas to clear that up, to clear up the conversation. Then he can go to the bathroom. We had a statement like that.
Yeah.
But then we said the smell, you're supposed to go away 4 amas.
I just
Yeah.
wondering, because we talking about the atmosphere's kedusha, so that would be a negative kedusha, and the tefillah is a positive kedusha.
I hear you.
Both of them are ephemeral for the most part.
Yeah, I forget where. Somewhere in Tanya it quotes Asar Mamaras. Who wrote Asar Mamaras? The Rameh Mipano. Asar Mamaras says that every person is surrounded by a halo of Eretz Yisrael or something. There's a kedusha that surrounds a person. So anyway, okay. Zalfa and Simon. That's going to be the names of the sages that are going to be we're going to quote now. This is a very famous Gemara.
Say that about so many Gemaras.
It's quoted often. Shala Talmida Vesrebi. It's Rebbe Zakai. The students asked Rebbe Zakai. So the Zion over here is the Zakai. What did you do that caused you to live so long? He says, Miyamai, always, all my days. I never urinated within 4 cubits of prayer. It was weighted. I never made a nickname for my friends. Bitalti kiddush ayayim. I was always careful to make kiddush. Ima zakena haisali. I had an elderly mother. Pamachas machra kappa shabaresha v'vili kiddush ayayim. It was so important to me that she actually sold her tichel so that I should have wine for kiddush. Tana, because of this, it was taught in a brayso kishemesa when this mother passed away. Nichle gimel meyas garbe yayin. She left for him 300 flasks of wine. When he passed away, Reb Zakkai passed away, he left 3,000 flasks of wine for his children. That's a lot of kiddushes. Okay, Rav Huna have a asarita. Rav Huna put on a reed as a gartel. The koi kame de Rav, and he's in front of Rav. Rav Huna's a student of Rav. Amalei mai hai, what are you doing over there? What's that? You're wearing a gartel, a reed. Amalei lei haveli kiddusha. I didn't have wine. Mashkante lahamyane. I pawned my gartel, my belt. Vasabe kiddusha, and I made kiddush. Amalei Rava the titim b'shiroi. It should be the will of Hashem. Yehi is Yiratzin. That you should be girdled with silk. Yeah. Ki ichlal Rabba Brei. When his son got married, Rav Huna's son, Rav Huna inish gutza have. Rav Huna was short. So Gana Apuria, he was laying on a bed. Asyan binse v'kalse sholchan v'shadayim minayo alay. The daughters-in-law came in, and they took off their silk clothing, and they didn't notice that he was there, and they just threw it over him. So ad itim b'shiroi, he was girdled in silk. That was the wedding gowns and all of that. Shama Rav hears about this, Vic, but he gets upset. Amar, my time le'amartali ki barachticha v'chein lamar. Why didn't, when I gave you the bracha, you didn't say same thing for you? V'chein lamar, same thing for the master. You should have responded that, because then I could have received the bracha back. Apparently my brachas work. So if you would have said v'chein lamar, then it would have worked for me as well. Shalu Talmida ves Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. The students asked Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua is one of the students of Rabbi Akiva, the 5 students. That is Rabbi Meir, Rabbi Yossi, Rabbi Yehuda, we've been talking about, and Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua and Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. So Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua, he's one of the Asara Rugi Malchus. The students asked him, B'meharach the Yamim. I guess he lived very long, and then he was killed. How did you live so long? No. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. There are 2 Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, but no. This is when the Mishnah says Rabbi Elazar, it's always Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua. When it says Rabbi Eliezer, it's always Rabbi Elazar ben Horkanus. Not in the Gemara. In the Gemara, Rabbi Elazar is Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas. This would be a Mishnah or a Brisa, quoting Rabbi Elazar.
So earlier when you mentioned Rabbi Yehuda, that say things, and they say, no, you don't.
Yeah, that's Rabbi Yehuda Rabbi Lai, his friend. Yeah. Amalehem, he responds, Rabbi Elazar ben Shemua responds, I never made the shul into a shortcut. Never walked through a shul to get to somewhere. Like Pasati al Rashi Am Kaddish. I never walked over the people. I guess when people were there already on the ground, I would get to my place. I wouldn't walk over everyone's head to get there. Lenasati kapi b'lei bracha. It must be a kayin. I never said duchen without saying a bracha. I always said a bracha first. What's the big chiddush? It sounds like maybe he could have been yaitza with someone else's bracha. I don't know. Shala talmidav es Reb Preda. Remember Reb Preda?
No.
I think in brachas we had Reb Preda, where he taught 400 times the student, and then one time the student wasn't listening, so he taught him another. He said he was going to have to leave early. The student the whole time couldn't concentrate, so he taught it to him another 400 times. So it doesn't say over here about that. It just says they asked him, "How did you live so long?" No one ever came before me to shul. I was always the first.
Wow.
Yeah, Ibn Naftali. Liberachti lefnei kayin. I never said birchas hamazon.
Yeah, motorcycle.
Yeah, the motorcycle, right. I never said birchas kainim in front of a kayin, and not birchas kainim. I never benched. Birachti means I never benched. Birchas
In
hamazon.
front of a coin?
Yeah, in other words, I always let the kayin bench, lead the benching. Rabbi Simon Revel bench and. I never ate from an animal that the gifts to the kayin weren't taken. Here, a preda obviously is not a kayin. Okay. Officially, you're allowed to eat from the animal before the gifts are taken. You have to give the gifts. Israel chayim in the cave of the right arm, the front arm, the cheek, and in one of the stomachs. Because he followed the opinion of Rabbi Yitzchak that says that you're not allowed to eat from an animal, that the gifts were not taken. Rabbi Yitzchak says that anyone that eats from an animal that the gifts weren't taken as if he eats tevel. Bless Hilchas HaKavaseh. We don't paskin like that. Yeah.
Doesn't the Kohen have like another day to that stuff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't. It's not even the kohen doesn't have to eat it. The kohen can give it back to you. It's not sanctified. That's the point over here. It's not like truma. With truma, only a kohen can eat. He has to go to the mikveh. And it's like it's the other things that you can share with it. You can give it back. You can sell it. I don't know the answer. Zalman's asking, how do they know that this was? That it was because of this. They probably did a bunch of things. How do they know which? I don't know. I never benched before a kayin. Is that supposed to be a good thing? But Rabbi Yochanan says, a Talmud Chacham is not allowed to let even a kain gadol amaretz benched before him. The Talmud Chacham is supposed to go first, and he's supposed to lead the benching. And here you have Rav Preda, who's a Talmud Chacham, and he's letting any kain bench. That's not right. Shenemar kol misanai avu maves. All those that hate me love death. Al tikr misanai ela masniyai. All those that cause people to hate him. Now, this means that if a Talmud Chacham would let other people go first, then it looks like he is not valuing the Torah.
Oh.
So the Gemara says, "Kikamer yobashavin." What Rav Preda meant was that when the Talmud, a Kayan would bench before him, he never benched before a Kayan. That's because the Kayan was also a Talmud Chacham. Now,
It's like this whole section should be very clear.
yeah, right. Very good. Shalom Talmida Ves. Rab Nechunya ben Akana. Speak to that today. Rab Nechunya. They asked Rab Nechunya ben Akana. What do we have from the Nechunya ben Akana? We have who made Alakai Nitzar? Is that Rab Nechunya ben Akana? How did you live so long? Oh, he made on Bekayach. On Bekayach is Rab Nechunya ben Akana. At the Bahir, Sefer Bahir.
What do they ask him?
He must have been old.
That's what I was gonna say. The day
Yeah.
before he died, the day after he died.
Yeah. Amalahem, he said, I never got honor from the shame of my friends. We have to see what that means. And I never came onto my bed a curse of my friends. Vachon b'mamani, you say, I always forgoing what came to money. Let him keep it. I never got honor from the shame of my friends. Ki had Rav Huna Dari Mara Kaspe. Rav Huna was carrying a maraz, a hoe, on his shoulder. Asar Rab Chana bar Chanilai. Remember Rab Chana bar Chanilai? He came from a neighboring town. The Kadari money he was also carrying. Because Dari Minei. And he was taking it from him. That's what it means. Because Shakal Minei. He was taking it from him. Amalei, so Rav Huna tells Rav Chana bar Chanilai, Iragilas de Daris b'masech Dari. If this is something that you would do in your hometown, then fine, yeah, I'll let you take it. But if you would never do this, it's Yakuri Anna, I should be honored. Does he didach with your shame? That doesn't make me happy. So that's what he's saying, that Rav Nechuni ben Akana was saying that I never got honor from someone else's shame. If it wasn't appropriate for someone else to do it, then I never let them do it for me. I never came onto my bed the curse of my friends. This is similar to Marzutra. When we go into his bed, and I'm Michael everyone that bothered me. Yeah, that's where it comes from. What we say in Krishma Shalamita. Harini Michael. I'm always forgoing when it comes to money. He would always leave the change, a pruta of change by the storekeeper. Yeah. Is that a good thing? Apparently. Yeah.
Keep the change.
So this guy he buys from a monk soda or something in India. They asked him for change. So the guy says, change comes from within. Okay. Shal Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nechunya Gadol. Rabbi Akiva asked Rabbi Nechunya Gadol. Is that Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana? Who is that? Do they say who Rabbi Nechunya Gadol is? Amar Loi b'meh harachta yamim. How did you live? What did you do to live so long? He says, Asu Gavzi v'kamachale. It's a bad story. His shamus comes and starts to hit Rabbi Akiva. Salak Yasav Arish the dictor. Rabbi Akiva runs up a tree, a date palm. It's hard to climb up. Amalei Rebbe. He shouts out, Rebbe, says to Rabbi Nechunya, Im nemar keves, lama nemar echad. We say keves echad taseh b'beiker. That one lamb should be brought in the morning. He said, why does it have to say one lamb? It says lamb. Lamb means one. It doesn't say kvasim. Why does it have to say echad? Amar lahu, so Rabbi Nechunya says to the other people there, says, Tzuver midirabananu. This was a scholar. He's asking like a heavy question. So why would leave him alone? Shavku. Leave him alone. Or maybe it means they left him alone. Amalei, he responds to the question. Echad miyuchad shabedri. When it says keves echad, means that the best of the Amalei. And so now he goes back because he started. Rabbi Akiva asked him a question. How did you live so long? So they didn't like that. They were asking that he was asking him the question. Maybe it looked like he didn't want him to live. I don't know what the issue was. So yeah, that's what Rashi says. Maybe it's like talking to him like that. You're so old or something. Miyamai like kibalti matanis. I never accepted any gifts. Le'amadati al midaisai. I never took revenge. I always let things pass.
It's funny how they just know why they live so long.
Right.
It's like, oh, like I never went swimming in public or something. I don't know.
Right.
It's just figure things out. I don't know.
Today they would say, "How did you live so long?"
Yeah.
They'd say, "Well, I didn't smoke, something I didn't." That's
Yeah,
what it
yeah,
is.
right.
I had yogurt every day,
Yeah.
cabbage soup. Batran b'mamayni hayisi. I was forgoing with money. Like kibalti mat. Okay, now we go back to explain. Like kibalti matanis, they never accepted gifts. Ki had Rabbi Lazar. By Rabbi Lazar, this is Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. Ki avi mishajile matanis mi bein asiya, when the house of the nasi would send him gifts. Lay havi shakel, he wouldn't accept it. Gav mizamnile, when they would invite him, lay havi azli, he wouldn't even go to that as well. Amalei lay nichalachu da'achye, you don't want me to live. You're trying to kill me. Says if I hate gifts, I'm gonna live. Reb Zera ki av mishadlim ben asiya lavi shakel. Reb Zera as well, he wouldn't take if they would send it to him. Gav mizamnile also, but they invited him, he would go. Amars yakuri de. They're getting honor when I come. Isn't that interesting? I was never taking revenge. Anyone that's Michael, he is forgiven. If you don't take revenge, you let things pass, all the sins are forgiven. Shemer noisi yavan v'ivral pesha. Noisi yavan. Nesi Yavan is referring to that he is forgiving. Vaiver al Pesha means he overlooks sins. Lemi Nesi Yavan, to who is forgiven? Lemi Shaiver al Pesha, to someone that overlooks things that were done wrong to him. Shal Rabbi Shua ben Karcha. Rabbi asks Rabbi Shua ben Karcha, but Maharachta Yamim, how did you live so long? Amalei Katzta B'chayei. Are you upset that I'm living so long? Amalai, he responds, Rebbe, Tari, v'limadani tzara. It's a quote. I need to know. It's teach me Torah, tell me. Yeah, in Brachas, that was said by Rav Kana. Quotes Rav Kana on the Rav's bed. Amalei miyamalei nistakalti bid musad Russia. I never looked at a wicked person. You never watched television. Rabbi Yochanan said, Russia. Like Rabbi Yochanan says, that you're not allowed to look at a wicked person. This was when he called Yehoram calls Yehoshaphat. Yehoram and Yehoshaphat were going to go to battle together. They called the prophet. They caused a bunch of false prophets. They all said, "Oh, you're going to win. You're going to win." Shavat said, "Don't you have another prophet?" He says, "Yeah, but he doesn't like me." And Elisha comes and he says, "You should know I wouldn't even look at you if not for your shafa." It basically proves that he does. He says he's going to lose and whatever. See, I told you. He says, "Okay." Rabbi Elazar Aimer Einav Kahis. If someone looks at a wicked person, his eyes get dim. Yitzchak, why did he go blind? Because he looked at his son, Esav. The Gemara says, that's how he went blind. From Rabbi Yitzchak, we had earlier. We had, you shouldn't take lightly the curse of a simple person. So, Avimelech cursed Sarah. And it didn't happen with Sarah, but it happened with her son. When he returned Sarah, he said, "This is a covering for your eyes. I'll take a ksus, it's a covering for your eyes. It's not a garment for your eyes, it's a covering for your eyes." The Gemara says, Hava hagarmale. Okay, there were two things that caused this. One was the curse, and one was that he looked at Esav. Rav Amar Mehacha. Seis pnei rasha leitayv.
Abimelech cursed Yitzchak.
Well, he cursed Avram when he returned Sarah.
And that in turn cursed.
And then it came out with Yitzchak. B'shas Pitirasai, when Rabbi Shua ben Karcha was passing away, Amalei Rebbe Barcheni. So he says, Rebbe, I guess this Rebbe says to him, "Bless me." Amalei Hirashin said, "Shetagia lachatzi yamai." You should reach half my years. He says, I shouldn't reach your full age. Amalei Abayim Acharecha Behima Yiro. You want your children to be just shepherds, cattle watchers, because you have to leave them that they should also rise to greatness, or else you'll outlive everyone. And then what's going to happen with the descendants? Avua bar Ihi uminyamin bar Ihi chadam artesili dalayastakalti bekaisi bekuti bechadam artesili dalayabadati shutzaspadi kuti. One says that I lived long because I never looked at a guy. Other one says I lived long because I never did partnership with the guy. Shala told me the Zera b'marach yamim. They asked Reb Zera, how did you live so long? This we had before, very important. I never got angry in my house. This we had in Tainus.
They translate here an evil goy as opposed to just the goy.
Yeah, that's politically correct.
But what is correct without being political? It's just any goy.
No, it means the evil guy also, but just the way it's said is more correct, more politically correct. The kuti was a. We never know what the original version is. I don't have the. Maybe the new Gemaras have corrected what the. I never walked in front of someone that was greater than me. I never thought Torah in dirty places. I never walked 4 cubits without Torah. Or without tefillin. Wow. I never slept in the base medrash. Not a permanent, not a full sleep, and not a nap. I never rejoiced at the when my friend stumbles. I never called him a nickname, or I never made up a nickname for my friends. A derogatory name. Yeah. Okay, let's leave it over here. Have a good week, everyone.
We're gonna see him coming up this week.
Yeah, we finish on